It's 1:10. We'll get this meeting Capcom 12/14/23 rolling. It's 1:10 p.m. This meeting is being audio video recorded and will be displayed on the town's YouTube channel. Please don't consider to display anything you don't want broadcast. And I don't see any members of the public. I don't anticipate we'll have public comments. Sue, I don't actually happen to have the agenda, but why don't we get a motion to approve the agenda? Peter?
Motion.
On your motion?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
Sorry. And I'm an aye. Great, thanks. So we're here today to try and wrap up the Rory review. And we were waiting for some supplemental information from department heads. We received 2, 4, 6 of 8. We're holding on climate action plan and EV charging stations until we receive some additional information on those. Which, Sue, you think for next week?
Actually, Jeff Carlson and Vince Murphy are both on. I did invite the department heads too, in case it was easier for them to just explain in person.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Let's see. Why don't we start with, David was here first, so why don't we do sewer? And we have the Surfside maintenance and admin start building, supplemental, I believe. And a new 10-wheel dump truck. And let's see. David, why don't you, Sue, can you pull up and screen share what we received? While I'm looking for
On the particular items,
yeah,
yeah, give me 1 second.
the supplemental.
Yep.
Yeah, please.
I can give you a little bit of background why on this request specifically. What we're finding based on some of our recent projects and bids coming in, the numbers are just out of sight lately. We've already had to go back on a couple projects to seek some supplemental funding, and this one is no different. We're seeing prices anywhere from $1,000 to $1,300 a square foot right now for construction, which would put this building up at around $8.6 million based on those numbers. So this was what the supplemental request was for, just so that we could, if by chance we can do this other ways, we're going to try. But we just this week have signed the contract for a OPM, and the next section on that will be for a designer. I know the CHA for the OPM has that price range has been negotiated for those services, and then next will be the designer to come in. So I should have probably originally asked for a higher amount to start, but I was adamant I was going to try to do this for less than what I was actually seeking, but the numbers and those of you guys in the trades and everything is seeing it. It's some of these numbers are just way out of control. So.
Okay. Thanks, David. And I think what I'll do is we'll just do a quick round, see if anyone wants to comment additionally. Just if you want to pop up your hand. Someone there. Peter.
I guess my only question or clarification. So on the description, it has that it was what fiscal year 22 design money was approved. And so was that what's the current status of those funds? I guess how much was approved for that and whether or not all of that's been expended or how much has or hasn't.
We haven't, we're just now at the point where we just hired on getting an OPM on board.
Gotcha.
So
That's what I thought you heard. So I just didn't know if that money was dating from this fiscal year 22 appropriation. So,
Yeah.
And do you recall how much that was appropriated in 22?
300 and it was about $400,000,
Okay.
I believe.
And,
And
and those
again, like,
funds,
yeah, they haven't been spent yet, no.
gotcha. So those funds are going first to OPM, then to design, and now we're doing supplemental for anticipated construction based on what we assume it'll cost, but without a design, it's a pretty rough figure also, right?
Yeah, and I based that total on, you know, the $1,000 to $1,300 per square foot that we're seeing for numbers coming in. One of the examples we saw in the South Valley, we had anticipated just about $900,000, and it came in at 2.1 million on the bid. So,
Hmm.
um,
And that was for what, a pump station?
that was for just a pump station
Yeah.
upgrades.
Yep, gotcha. And so the square footage that you're basing that, 1,000 to 1,300 metric on is based on, loosely this draft building layout.
Yeah, we're looking at 100 by 86.
Okay, gotcha. Just, all right, that I believe does it for me at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you.
Anyone else? Sue, I guess I'd ask, do you have any idea how many individual companies are responding to these bids in general, not this one in particular?
No,
Yeah.
We had,
Dave,
I think,
maybe?
I think we had 3 for the South Valley pump station. On the CMOM year 1B that just went out and the contracts being awarded, we had 3 bidders. And a lot of the bidders of what we're seeing are some of the normal faces. However, the one contract that we're getting ready to award for sewer work is a new company, brand new to the island, with extensive experience, but they were the low bidder. So, and those numbers were all within $300,000 to $600,000 difference between the spread. So people are doing sharp pencils, but the numbers are coming in high.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I mean, just a general comment, these numbers are quickly becoming untenable. I don't see how projects are gonna go forward. Not necessarily with a Capcom recommendation, but at the polls. And, I'm just wondering out loud if there should be some type of a pursuit of a determination of alternative solutions, because, or some way to supplement having non-local, which is to say, northeastern or Eastern Mass bidders involved, including perhaps housing. I know we're looking at housing for our own employees at the town level and for the year-round workforce and so on and so forth, but I'm just seeing, I don't know, I guess I'm just thinking out loud because these numbers are so shocking, and I'm familiar with the numbers, I'm familiar with the inflationary rates and so on and so forth for various reasons, not least of which is having sat here at Capcom for the last 6 or 7 years. David, that's not at all directed at you. You have no control over that.
No.
It's not directed at anyone. It's just,
Yeah.
a comment of general concern. Okay,
And if I could,
ahead.
that's why it's something that we want to try to do in this project. Specifically is, try to do a steel structure. And I mean, the town could go out and purchase this size structure, everything ready to go, just needs to be put together for less than $1 million.
Yeah,
It's all the other pieces, but I mean, if we can work some of these different ways of doing the construction, and if we're allowed to by mass procurement purchase a building and then just hire someone to put it up and finish it, we could save substantial money. But I mean, even the price of pipe and some of these other projects we're seeing now are it's really out of control.
yeah, no, agree and agree. I'm gonna jump over to the 10-wheel dump. You have that down. I think what we were looking for was, clarification on priority. And there was some other conversation about 2 other dump trucks that weren't involved in yours. Can you just give us an idea of like the usefulness of this thing, this coming fiscal year? Is it somehow specially equipped, it needs to be ordered in advance, I don't know, I understand market issues, just give us your perspective on that one, if you would, please.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, the lead times are still pretty steep on some things. But this truck and as you can see, I put some examples up just of a truck that's a 2014. Because we have no where to get this stuff inside, it's just really starting to disintegrate. So, pushing towards the facility to get things inside. But the thing that we found, we had been trying to take and get a specific brand truck to try to be uniform through the department. What we found is some of the brands that we liked, we're finding that some of the quality of workmanship and or the durability of these trucks are just not there. Western Star has been around for a lot of years. We actually have one Western Star here that has our big vac truck on it. And we're noticing different metal materials or different paint processes that are saving these other style vehicles from the Freightliners that we were really happy with, but they're just, I don't know if it's a different metal, if it's a different painting process or whatever, but we did a lot of research now looking into the trucks we want to go forward with. Besides getting into the Peterbilts, the Max or whatever like that are really a lot of money. The Western Star seems to be a very, very good vehicle, durable. It's fairly easy to work on compared to some vehicles because of the technology that they use. This truck would be used for not only, sewer projects, which we have many, and emergencies and stuff like that, but it would be, it would be a shared vehicle in the sense to stormwater. With the brand new stormwater enterprise fund that we're coming up on, it's going to be a few years before we get that fully operational and funded. In the meantime, we're going to be trying to share resources as much as we can on projects and drivers, et cetera. So this is why, if the Western Star name is what kind of was surprising, it's just what we have found now in the industry that is pointing us to this brand vehicle.
Okay. All right, any questions, Peter?
Yeah, so this one with the photos and the, significant rust and kind of body deterioration, is this currently a dump back or is this a jetter truck?
This truck that's shown in the pictures is one of our roll-off trucks that has a dump body attached to it. But as you can see by the pictures of the trucks, even the containers and the dump bodies that we have are, until we can get our stuff inside, it's just, it's a mess. And we have I have a piece of equipment coming that I saw, and we're going to try it. It's a laser unit that takes and eliminates rust and stuff like that. And then you can paint on it with epoxy or whatever. But somehow we got to try to protect what we are. So we're looking at the better. It's a more quality vehicle that we're looking at now.
Gotcha. And so the Western Star, that's not a roll off. That's a, fixed dump bed.
Yes.
As you'd call it.
That would be strictly a 10-wheel dump truck, correct? With,
Gotcha.
If we have to get a plow to be supplemental for the DPW, so be it. I'd rather not put all of our vehicles into the snow line, but.
Yep. And I mean, it seems like every request we're getting between DPW and maybe sewer to a lesser extent, all sound like they're trying to equip with, snow and sanding package. So it sounds like our plowing capacity, so to speak, is going to be pretty robust.
Yeah, and this truck was used extensively for snow plowing since we got it in 14, 15. And this is what happens, even no matter how much you wash these trucks.
Yeah, and so is a truck like this, is it optimal for plowing because you fill the bed up with sand and you have the spreader on the back? I mean, is that why this is such a key plowing asset?
Yeah, because of the size. Say if you have the root, one of the big roots like the Pulpus root or Walwinnet root,
yeah,
you can go out with one load of salt and
okay.
you can do your entire route. You don't have
so this is for spreading also.
Yeah, it's also, it has
Yeah,
the ability
yeah.
for spreading too, yes.
Gotcha. So that's where the dump bed can be very valuable for snow plowing and management and road management. Okay, interesting. And so I guess one question that we had at the last meeting with this, and maybe another request. If the existing truck, you know, is gonna be replaced like with this vehicle, how many times would you say that existing truck was, you know, used last year? You know, number of times a year for snow and other on project calls.
We didn't have a lot of snow last year, luckily, but we use this current roll-off truck to haul dumpsters away with, you know, with material from the headworks or whatever like that. It's used to transport equipment. It's used to take materials to job sites. But, you know, it's even at the point now where some of the bodies that we have for this are getting to the point where the dump body specifically, because we've hauled a lot of stuff in that dump body, and it's just rotting away.
The actual dumpsters themselves.
Yeah, I'd love to find some kind of, there's got to be a better technology out there for paint or protection besides, we've tried Rhino liner, we've tried some
Mhm.
special epoxy coatings on stuff, and it's the climate's just killing us, the atmosphere out here.
And so moving to this fixed dump body, I mean, are you gonna lose any capabilities from not having that roll off capability available?
The only ability we'll lose is just to move in some dumpsters, but luckily the DPW and us have similar vehicles. So when it comes to it, you know, moving a couple containers here or there, whatever like that, we'd be able to
Call them in.
call them in. I mean,
Yeah.
if this truck, and I mean, it's got very, I don't think the one that we got now has 40,000 miles on it. It's just,
Hmm.
but if we can get this rust to slow down, we've even looked at some electronic, plugging these trucks into electronic for some kind of an electronic electrolysis type eliminator. But it's tough out here, especially right here on the water.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. Okay, yeah, great, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for David?
It's like chills. Better hand
Oh,
up.
Jill?
Yes, Joe, we'll take you for a ride.
You know, I want that.
Yeah.
David, it sound like the roofing was really expensive? Is that did I read that right?
On some of the projects
Yeah,
on the building, yeah. And one of the things now that's also driving some of these, especially on Nantucket, and I know you guys have been heavily within it, is PFAS. We have to be very careful with any construction materials now with PFAS and leaching into the
Mhm.
groundwater and the surface.
yeah,
So it's, you know, and everything, if you're going to buy something that doesn't have PFAS in it, it's going to be more expensive.
right. So
Um,
what is that product?
They have some other materials out there, and then, you know, one of the things we need to get away from and watch out for is the new Gen X projects of PFAS. Which I mean, you can get into different kinds of coatings that don't have any PFAS, but even some paints that we get now for just trying to protect some of our small pumps or whatever like that, you know, low VOC now, and, you know, no PFAS stuff, you're talking, you know,
Mhm.
$100 and something a gallon or more of this material, and it's driving the costs up. It really is.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. David, back on the dump truck, you were talking about sharing workload with the DPW for the lift for the dumpsters. Does this vehicle, the 10-wheeler, have any cross-department utility, or is it primarily just gonna be for yours? There's not a right answer, I'm just curious.
It would have the ability to, if say Mr. Moore or whatever called and they needed, they had a bit large sinkhole and they need someone to haul with it, it could definitely be used. All they'd have, you know, they call us up. Same thing with like the airport or whatever. I mean, we could haul anything we could fit in that truck at a moment's notice for sure.
Okay, Noah's here, he's gonna hold you to that.
Hmm.
Okay, that's good, thank you. No, any other questions for David on this? All right.
I mean, but
Peter?
mine might only be and Stephen, you might be able to answer this best. So there's a 325 appropriation for the building in 2022. And so have there been any other approved appropriations to date, or is this just the second, you know, and of those two, and this is the
Now,
bulk of it for
What
construction?
was it in 20?
Yeah.
What was the other? There was another year that had
So we already-
4.5 or something. Yeah, so there's already some money, yes.
Okay, so there's already 4 to 5 million appropriated, and so sometimes these details get lost in the actual SIP or in Plum, but so this supplemental request is actually for how much?
3 million.
Okay, gotcha. So this is for 3, 4 to 5 has already been, bulk appropriated, and then we have the 325 in the beginning. And, based on where you stand now, you think that with this supplemental funding, assuming no major surprises in the bids, that this should be enough, hopefully, depending on when those actually come back.
Based on current recent projects we've
Yeah.
had bid, we should be good.
Great, got it. Okay, yeah, sometimes it can be difficult to find that specific breakdown in the SIP.
I mean, I
You're
would
looking in the
love
right
to,
place.
I would love to have been able to put some housing upstairs in this building. I mean, it's big.
Mhm.
Even if it was small apartments or whatever, but that's gonna really increase the cost, because now you're talking an elevator. We definitely have to use fire protection now, something that we're gonna be required to do because we just got town water. Up until this year, we still only have a well out here, so.
Mm.
But now we're gonna have to start fire protection, which we've never had to do here.
Right, yeah, got it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, David. Okay,
Thank
David,
you.
looks like those are our questions answered. We appreciate your time. Thanks for zooming in with us.
Oh, anytime, guys. I'm sorry I didn't have a lot of that for you before, but
Yeah,
Okay, and we're gonna jump, Sue, do we have someone from admin to answer questions on the ground mapping, I think there was a supplemental information on the town plate housing, I saw that, and the EV charging stations? We have Sue still?
Stu, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So no, there's nobody that is on the meeting to speak to either of those. However, the ground mapping, I did update Plum with all of the information, the grant application. I can't remember what other, I'm so sorry, I'm juggled all of these projects. Well, I believe, everything that was asked regarding I think I also, Holly, Backus had responded and put in writing the process worked and what the money would be used for email, as well as the grant application.
Okay, yeah, and actually, the reason I asked is because I thought we let in that we had someone here, Jeff, I believe, for climate action, and someone was gonna address the EV charging stations. I guess I misunderstood. So we won't have information on the EV charging stations. The ground mapping radar, can you pull that one up, please, on the screen? I have the EV stations instead. Just a supplemental, please. Or I can save you the pain. CPC grant,
Here is the email from,
there we go. So $50,000. If it's approved at annual town meeting.
which
And
is,
then the other question was whether this would go forward if that funding wasn't realized. Is there a position from administration on that, you know?
I believe she addresses it in the email. I'm sorry, I have not looked at it since.
No, it says that PIN will be providing in-kind funding of 50%. But I don't see anything that indicates,
I don't remember a time when the CPC recommendations were not approved at town meeting. Does anyone have any recollection of that happening?
I think there have been a couple actually earlier on, but I have no reason to suspect this wouldn't be. I just wanted to, that was the particular question that was asked by one of the members, so I wanted to make sure we addressed it. If you guys are comfortable with the information we have, then I don't have an issue with it. So we have, CPC itself has
blessed.
that's how he said it. Was it 50,000?
Mhm.
And the town, and that will be matched by PIN. Okay. The next one Town employee housing was updated on the site with the introduction.
Sorry,
And-
so I didn't understand. Does that mean that we're not gonna have to give money for that project? Because is it fully funded or it was only partially funded?
No, the money that we're putting forth would be, well, actually, that's interesting. I'm confused. The CPC funding is independent of capital program committee.
Yeah,
But when I looked at that, the email, I thought indicated that it was somehow. CPC project.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out if she still needs our money.
Yeah, no, I got confused because when I read this, it said this funding from capital shows the town's commitment to CPC in this important assessment of our historic infrastructure. I read that to be with respect to the dollar numbers, but this, she's talking about support by voting a recommendation to add funds to the kitty.
Yeah, I read this as a commitment from town administration for this project to support the CPC agreeing to fund it. In other words, the CPC typically doesn't like to fund town projects where the town hasn't made a commitment as well to a project. They don't want to be, they don't want to have town projects foisted on them in lieu of town administration putting funding for a project. So the fact that this request, I believe, if memory serves, would be an indicator to CPC that the town believes is committed to this project as well. And therefore it's worthy of their supporting. Does that make sense?
Gotcha, and as I read it, it's $100,000. So Sue, can you clarify the $100,000? There's a couple different ways to look at this, and that's where it's a little confusing. Is the $100,000 the town's input, and then the total cost of the project is $50,000 from the CPC and $50,000 from Ken? I mean, that's really the only thing that makes sense.
We certainly will confirm that, but my understanding is this 100,000 is the commitment from the town.
Okay. So we'll want to footnote that this is a $200,000 project, 50,000 CPC grant, it floated in a town meeting, and 50,000 PIN. Okay, that helps clarify because there was how that would all work out. Okay.
So for the footnote, the 100,000 is net of what we expect from CPC and PIN.
Yes,
And that's expected to be fully approved, or if approved, that full 100,000 would be coming from the town.
yeah, the way I read this is the PINs is contingent upon the grant and they will
CPC.
match it, and then the town will in essence double it.
The town will double it as in our approval of this appropriation.
Through the appropriation,
Gotcha,
yeah, so the
gotcha.
total project cost is 200,000.
So the 100,000 that we're seeing there is the minimum that the town will be putting in,
Right, and I guess,
assuming the other stuff goes through.
yeah, and I guess what was driving the question is that if the funding didn't come through, does this number need to change? Now, again, Brooke made the point, I think it's a good point, is that how many CPC projects aren't advanced, but and it was a worthwhile trying to understand the dollars.
And I mean, typically, wouldn't we do the whole 200 and then, in the funding
Yeah.
section, it would be 50 expected from CPC, 50 from PIN, assuming CPC is approved, and then, net of 100 coming from whatever the town's funding source is, but.
Yeah, typically, and the reason for that, just for members who in the past has always been that if it doesn't go through for whatever reason with the grant funding, then the project cost is covered in the appropriation.
This
We can,
wouldn't be.
yeah, and this wouldn't be. So Sue, would you mind please following up with Brian and see how he would like to do this in terms of. I'll shoot an email, it'll be easier. Okay, so that's,
And one last
Go ahead,
question,
Peter.
just because we're talking about Penn putting up another 50,000. So is that captured in the email from Holly Backus?
Yeah,
Cause all I see is at the end where it said Penn will be providing in-kind funding for 50% for travel cost and housing.
oh, I thought that I read that. No.
Is there
then I'm-
somewhere else that it
then
says
I'm
that
making stuff up here.
they're matching the 50,000?
No. No, I think you articulated it correctly. Let me pull this back up. I read that quickly as 50%. I just saw matching.
Yeah,
50%.
no.
So you got the email in front of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a 50% in kind.
so 50% in kind, and it says, so in kind funding for 50% for travel cost and housing.
So then,
If that's what the whole project cost is also accounting for some of that, I guess we don't know how much of travel cost and housing is what percentage that is of the full budget for this project,
yeah,
right?
I think the simplest way to do this is, Sue, could we get a breakdown from finance on the cost of the actual project and where the sources are gonna be? The way I'm understanding it now is $100,000 from the town, 50,000 from CPC, and then there will be additional funding in kind donations from PIN with respect to housing and transportation. But it'd be better if we actually knew for the purposes of our final recommendation. On the concept itself, I don't think there's been any resistance to the project.
No.
It's not a large dollar number. It affords a lot of benefits to the community. I think we all agreed on that. Any comments on that? Okay, so we'll proceed with that.
Is not monetary. In kind is done in, that's what it's saying, printing, mailing, administrative costs. So there won't be a funding source for in kind.
I'm sorry, it's tough to hear you. I heard you, but just so you know, it's tough to hear you.
I just wanted to clarify that in kind is not a monetary. There's no dollar figure tied to that. So that's not a funding source. So right now, the 100,000 is from capital, the 50 is from CPC.
Yeah, no, I understand the concept of in kind. It's just, it's interesting because it says there's a 50%.
Yeah, that's the way it's.
There's some portion of that that ties to a monetary number because it indicates it's 50% of X.
Right.
So in terms of knowing what the overall costs are for our notations, it would be helpful to know what they're basing that on. It'd be much easier if they just said that there will be in-kind donations without a percentage, but that's not what I'm responding to. I'm just working with what I have in front of me.
I know they in the meeting, but unfortunately they probably weren't available.
Okay, well, I think we can move forward and it'll be a little bit soon. We have to wrap up before the holiday. Unless anyone has any concerns about that, that's what we're gonna do. Some concerns. Let's see. So we covered the ground mapping, town employee housing. Does anyone have any questions on town employee housing, the feasibility? Do we have Jeff with us
We have Vince.
and Vince?
It's your lucky day. You get us both.
Oh,
Hey, look at that.
Your microphone's working.
So guys, where we were with this is a conglomeration from my notes is the questions revolved around a 3-part topic. The breadth of the narrative, which it refers to as broad and ambitious. And in relation, how that narrative will translate into community-wide action-driven climate plan with mitigation goals, which is what it says in the text. Without precursor discussion and policy and programming decisions having been determined within the community. But, at a broader scale than the crack and so on and so forth. So that's a bit there. Can you guys kind of chunk that down for us?
You're talking about the climate plan?
Climate action plan.
Yeah.
So I can take the first go. Jeff doesn't mind.
Nope, have at it.
So you see this as broad and ambitious, and that we have to understand how the community tasks work. One of the things that we typically do for these large and amorphous plans is we have to go to the community, do effectively a public charrette, understand what the community concerns are, and then work it that way. So we can do the exact same thing as we have done for the hazard mitigation plan, the coastal resilience plan, the MVP process. This is just how this works in those public spheres for any of these kind of large environmental and somewhat policy-based decisions. You need to go to the community to understand what their needs are. If I can just give you a bit more of a breakdown of.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
So how we ended up where we are in some ways. So we've been trying to get climate action plan off the ground for nigh on 13, 14 years in the town. And it has had trouble, clearly, getting traction. So even as recently as earlier this year, I worked with MVP, Massachusetts Vulnerability Preparedness Program, to see if we could fund this. And they looked at it, they assessed the application, and they didn't take it up. This is yet the latest way to get this done. Through that process, I learned a number of extremely valuable things. First of all, this is an extremely necessary plan, and they understood the need for the plan and why the town wants this plan in the first place. The downside is they've funded a lot of these kind of things. What the MVP system wants is to have programs that are novel and unique that people can learn for, that can be translated into other communities and then can be taken up. Essentially, with climate planning, with climate action plans, they've done that. They've funded all the ones they want to fund, and they're moving on. So there's enough models out there for us to follow to try and make these get a plan in place. So when we were looking at how else we're going to fund it, there are no real state funding sources that we can identify anymore. We have, that ship has sailed. We need to try and get this off the ground and follow the existing models. So the things that we need to try and understand and trying to build into this is kind of twofold. First, there's the whole greenhouse gas side of it. We need to do a greenhouse gas inventory and understand what carbon is effectively used on island, and then come up with a way to have like a, I don't want to say a full decarbonization roadmap, that would be ideal, but have like 2030, 2050, 2070 type goals for carbon reduction. That's how these things tend to work. But the other thing is to improve the community ability to withstand climate change and how to avoid things like excessive and prolonged temperature issues. That's the other side of these climate action plans, how to deal with heat and extreme cold as a community, how to deal with things like power outages. What's our backup plan? We have the 2 undersea cables. We need to understand their restrictive nature on Nantucket and how to get the best effect from it. And Lauren's done great work on that over time. We need to understand what local power generation we might be able to undertake, and there's been a huge push for solar, and that is the next response we need to start building on. There's good momentum that we just need to capitalize on and push forward to make this the way that Nantucket works. So once we have this, we need to understand that we need, quite frankly, bespoke answers for Nantucket for how we run our carbon economy of sorts. There's a kind of a problem waiting in the wings. And I hate to say it in these kind of terms. There's the state climate action plan that's already in place, and it's got 2030 and 2050 goals already set out. And one of the issues is it's kind of one of these problems in the wings that if you're a community that doesn't have your own climate action plan, then the default will likely be the state's climate action plan. And here's the thing, you've got to understand, and you do know this, that Nantucket is probably a slightly larger than standard carbon user because we're an island. We have to get a lot of things here via air and by boat, and those skew our local carbon economy. Whereas if we develop our own greenhouse gas emission plan and have our own set local standards, we can avoid what might be the overly restrictive nature of the state's plan and have our own bespoke plan for how we deal with this. When we costed this plan out, we were looking at something, we had it costed at $250,000. We're also in a lucky position that there's a number of groups that already are quite specialized in looking at the carbon issues on within towns. There's a lot of companies with experience. So it's one of the few times where you can talk about a plan that hasn't massively increased in cost over time. It's not come down either, but it's remained relatively stable. So we would be in a position where we wouldn't be looking at an excessively expensive plan because other towns have already done these things. So hopefully you can see that there's a good way to get to what we need by working with the community, understanding what local needs are, and we have to have a good assessment of that first, which we don't have, sadly. There's been a couple of WPI reports at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and they're terrific, but they're a couple of years old. They were done by undergraduate students, which is always valuable, but they certainly need a heck of a lot of improvement if the town is going to act on those kind of things. So we just need to also bear in mind that this week, in fact, yesterday, COP28 finally just concluded after 14 days, and they had, for the first time ever, a mention of reducing fossil fuel dependence. So with that, I'll leave you to look for any questions.
Okay, no, that's very helpful information. Thank you. Questions or comments? So we're down a couple of members, a few members actually, one's traveling, but you guys are good?
I have a question.
Yeah, Christie.
Vince, if you could, I don't have my sheet in front of me, but what is the outlook for this plan in terms of annual funding? And once this plan is completed, if it is called completed, what's the longevity and expiration date of that plan?
This plan will cost about $250,000. We would have to see what recommendations would come from it, just like any other plan, to see what the possible cost implications would be. But they come as recommendations, and these are always written as living documents, just like the Coastal Resilience Plan. So we can, use it in a kind of real-time way to meet our needs. We don't have to rigidly hold to everything in it the same way as the Coastal Resilience Plan. We don't have to rigidly hold to everything in that either. But we can, take the recommendations that we can best implement, like what we did with the first couple of years of the Coastal Resilience Plan. We took the low-hanging fruit. We got a lot of early wins, and we started to show progress through the works that I was working on, now the works that Leah Hill, the new Coastal Resilience Coordinator, are working on, and the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee are working on. They are showing massive wins. There was 40 projects in that plan. More than half are now underway, and in fact there's about 5 already completed. And when you're only 2 years into kind of a 15-year plan like that, that's massive. That's a massive show of force and ability. So we're planning to use a very similar model for the climate action plan, that it would be approximately at least a 10-year plan, be a living document that we can utilize in real time and rewrite and rework to our advantage over time, so that we can get the best bang from our buck and come up with a good solution, a local solution, a bespoke solution for how we deal with our greenhouse gas emissions locally.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christie.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that really quickly? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. So just real quickly too, is one of the trends we're kind of seeing statewide, and the state did it itself. They've been linking these climate action plans up with their hazard mitigation plans a little bit as well. And those have a little shorter life cycle. And I think what we've heard in some of my discussions with some of the folks at the state, is that those hazard mitigation plans cycle kind of every 5 years, and that the climate portions of that would be like updated every other round. So it would be on that same, and I think it'd be our intention over time to kind of have that same sync up with our hazard mitigation plan that we've already had done. So we're on that same 5 and 10 year rotation.
Okay, thanks. Questions are implementation. What are you guys thinking? What are you anticipating if this were funded, town meeting authorized rather, the kickoff, how long of a process, the timeline related to kickoff process, a draft of the final report, and then the final report? That's question one.
Just having looked at other communities and what we're anticipating for us, about 1 year.
Okay, start to finish.
Barring complications, yes.
Okay, and then what are I presume that this will have multi-party development to it. So on the front end, during the process, and then in finalizing the report. But at this point, who will be the policy leaders in determining the final report? Will it be multidisciplinary? Will it be the select board? Will it be Kraken? But like, can you kind of flesh that out a little bit for us?
You want me to take that one, Vince?
Sure, Jeff, thanks.
Sure. So I think the answer to that is a little bit of yes to all, Stephen, where it would definitely multidisciplinary to go through and get vetted through. Obviously, there are a lot of stakeholder groups, whether it's, crack. I think there's, some place for planning and NPDDC, for Conservation Commission, for those. But I think ultimately, after it vets through those groups to some degree, the ultimate adoption would be through the select board.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question is revolves back to the beginning of the process, which is engagement. I think generally we have pretty good inputs. A lot of people are interested. My concern is a broad cross section. This is of individuals on the island who are year-round taxpayers, being somehow getting them involved, because this is ultimately going to be a very big dollar. In addition to the hazard mitigation, this could represent very big dollars. Are you guys thinking about alternative methodologies for deeper, broader engagement, or do you feel that isn't necessary, or maybe you can just speak to that topic?
Sure. So I think we would probably model a little bit of the engagement of this. We've had a lot of success lately with the Nantucket and Manatee Harbors Action Plan update, where we did a whole combination of public meetings at varying locations and times of the day where we got good results. We had a really great online survey that was available in different languages and made available, and can proudly say that we had the highest response rate of any community in the Commonwealth. We received well over 500 input just through the survey, and then had another about 300 participants through our in-person meetings outside of those. So I think we've really started to deal with that. We've had a lot of really great collaboration through our Office of Human Services in Jericho Mealy, and through Kamal at DEI. So I think we're really trying to do that. And one of the new roles that the state has taken, and for another project that you guys helped fund with the Maya Comment project, we're seeing with MEPA and the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency doing a lot of work for advance notice, especially in our environmental justice communities. So I think we could probably anticipate we're going to be starting that for that project, that kind of building on some lessons learned for the larger project and how to engage our EJ communities and make that available island-wide. But I think we're certainly committed to trying to hear as many people as possible and get as many people as engaged. I know we really like to get some involvement, and not this project specifically, but some other projects. I've been speaking with staff at the schools about how to get information to them, to get input back on some of our other programs. So we're certainly committed to trying to get as many people as possible to give whatever thoughts they have, and whether they're good or bad or indifferent, and try to build on those.
Gotcha.
And
Okay,
likewise, we have good contacts with the Youth Climate Action Committee in the high school too.
Okay, that might be a good source of outreach. Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Any further questions or comments? Is anyone on the board up there? No? Okay. Thanks for your time this afternoon. We appreciate the additional information.
No problem. Good luck.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, was that a goodbye, Brooke?
No.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So that leaves, for the moment, the dump truck. And I'm just reading my notes here and Sue's comment. I think we're actually okay with the vehicles. I'll double check the vehicles. I think you're right, Sue. We did advance. The one we didn't advance was the facilities utility van, which will save us some time. That brings us to the public safety auxiliary building. And Chief Gibson had provided some additional information. And did everybody have a chance to read that? Did anyone not have a chance to read that? Sue, would you be so kind to bring it up? I can't do it on this computer. It doesn't have an Outlook account to open that type of a file.
I had it open and somehow I closed it, anticipating.
Need that third desktop.
I do, you're absolutely right. I'm gonna
I don't see that in our IT request.
Brian can cover it up. Hold on one sec.
Yeah, take your time. So while Sue's pulling that up, guys, basically what I ask is please go through complete, I held off working through the up down to submit to select board and FinCom later today. If you would please go through, will anyone have difficulty completing these before, say, 4:30? There's just a handful of the Rorys. You may decide you don't want to make a change to what you've completed already, but if you do, is there anyone who's gonna have a problem with wrapping this up before the end of the afternoon? Joe?
I can do it. I guess I don't, what happened with the auxiliary building? Because I.
We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that now. I would just
Oh, sorry.
jump ahead on the next topic. Well, Sue was pulling that up. But to close out what I was just talking about, are you good with wrapping up on these this afternoon?
Yeah, I can do it right now.
Okay, cool, super cool. Sue, why don't you just run us through the information? I don't have it on a small screen in front of me to refer to is all.
Sure, I'll read you what Deputy Chief Gibson responded. So the breakdown on the cladding cost, I'm gonna actually do this so I can see it a little better. The cost for the exterior wall system is estimated at $95.83 a square foot. The estimate that we have been using places that cost at $448,000. The exterior wall system, as outlined in the paragraphs below, show how the insulation of the building is accomplished through the exterior sheathing and wood shingles. If this system was replaced with the standard exterior steel sheathing, there would be approximately a cost savings of approximately $40,000, since we would still require building insulation, steel horizontal metal studs, and painted exterior metal sheathing. In sum, the cost savings is only the elimination of the wood shingles and labor. Cost estimate is based on using a cedar shingle bundle, cost estimate of $150 per 25 square foot bundle, and an estimate of 64 hours to install, rates based on state prevailing wage. The metal building being shingled, the frame of the building is steel. Attached to the vertical steel structural beams are horizontal 8-inch 20-gauge metal studs, which are horizontal beams. Attached metal studs are exterior fiberglass matte gypsum sheathing. Fastened to the exterior sheathing is an insulated nail board, which provides the code mandated insulation value and as a nailer for exterior white cedar shingles as shown below. And then there's a nice picture. HDC requirement for shingling still required? Yes, the approved building plan by the HDC is shingled.
Thank you so much. So, general dollars and cents, the cost is perhaps, what it is, and it might make sense to ask that the topic be revisited with HDC. Metal siding obviously is going to be more durable, even if it costs more. So we've been cutting down on the maintenance interval and increasing the useful life of the materials, unless, of course, they use the metals that they're using on David's dump trucks, and then we're going to have problems. But the Two Fairgrounds building has been there since the 60s, and I don't think that's even had a coat of paint on it. And then the other alternative might be that they look at barn board, or barn board and steel. So is there any, I'm just kind of jumping into that one I think that was the direction we were headed is should it be revisited with the HDC or not? And is there any concerns or any other comments on that?
So,
Brooke?
if I may,
Yep,
The differential, did I hear that right? $40,000?
That's what I heard.
Okay,
up front.
because they would have to do something in place of shingles. It's not just removing them. Something else would have to go, and the insulation part still has to happen, so.
So
Okay,
that, yeah,
so
and
I
then
think
it depending,
I think that was the conversation. Are we spending $200,000 to shingle the building over what it would cost to do other siding?
yeah, I think that's not incorrect. For me, though, was also, is there an opportunity, an idea of the cost differential for steel to, because of the useful life of the material? And I just think, given its location on the property, it might be worthwhile recommending that that gets revisited. I don't think it holds up the recommendation in any way, shape, or form. It's, more incidental.
You know,
Go ahead, Chris.
I mean, as far as the sheathing, you gotta wonder what they sort of will warranty for the metal sheathing that would be on the building. And, whether despite, HDC, if shingles would be a, more durable, more longevity, sheathing on the building. I don't know. I guess it does, for me, it would probably come down to that differential in cost. But
Okay, and just to be clear, are you suggesting that shingles would be more durable than the steel? Or that steel would be more?
I don't know. I don't know the parameters of what steel they're using and if it's what the thickness is. Is it something that's gonna sort of flex in the wind where a shingled wall would give it some rigidity? I don't know. I don't know the parameters of the steel wall, of the wall surface enough.
They, just to clarify, they both cladding materials would be applied over a exterior sheathing material. So
Okay.
that basically what he was saying is there's a $40,000 difference in the cost. I presume
I see.
when the building was originally proposed, it was proposed as metal. So I presume that those aspects that you brought up, which are all good points, have been looked at and they're included in the cost difference.
I'm guessing the metal exterior wall would have to be repainted, a couple times over the useful life of the shingles. That's
Possibly.
one aspect.
If you want it to still look,
If you want to look good, it'd be,
presentable.
I mean, you look at
Yeah.
the water towers and how often those are repainted.
yeah,
Kind of those are a little higher elevation. I'm surprised that it's only a $40,000 cost for materials and labor to shingle that whole building. That sounds a little.
over what the other sheathing product is.
I mean, it says in this, and some, the cost savings
Yeah.
is only the elimination of the wood shingles and labor. So they make that sound like the $40,000 is the sum cost of the materials and labor to shingle that whole building, which sounds pretty low.
Yeah,
40,000 for that
Yeah.
pretty substantial building, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's probably easy because there's not a lot of dormers and windows and everything else. It's pretty much just get going and,
All right, Brooke, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
No, I think it's the net over putting shingles up versus putting other siding up. I don't.
it's, the way it reads is misleading then, if that's the
Yeah,
case.
yeah, I mean, I think it was the way that he did the analysis was the numbers for shingling were this, but yeah. Anyway.
Right, and yeah, I kind of read it that way, and I don't disagree, Peter, with your comment. I think for me, the question is there an appetite to pursue this further or leave it alone? It's $40,000. I don't have a strong feeling about one way or the other. So unless somebody wants to pursue steel, I think we'll just let this go. Okay, so that leaves us with the SWEP. Howard isn't here. Barry isn't here, and I prefer that we have the full membership for that discussion. Those are big ticket items.
Yeah.
And we can address the EV charger at that meeting. So I'm just gonna give you guys, as opposed to asking Sue to send an email, I'm gonna give you these 5 by the alphanumeric. everyone could grab a pen. Brooke, I see your finger up.
Hold on one second, just gotta get writing stick and
What was the one that Barry wanted to talk on? He wanted to talk about
Climate or coastal resilience.
Coastal resilience.
resiliency, but not
Yeah.
climate action. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so from the top, it's, I'm presuming Jill's ready to go. It's sewer 22-002. Sewer 24-011. PUBL 20-001. Admin 25-007. HOUS 25-001. And HMP 24-003. And if you guys could please wrap that up, I'm gonna start at 4:30. I'll spend my evening on this, and that'll be, if you want to make any adjustments, that's your deadline, okay?
do you want us to confirm that we are not, or that we have completed to you, just so you know?
No, you don't have to bother. I mean, I'll just take it at face value if it, I won't be looking to determine the differences. Well, I will be looking to determine whether the overall team value has changed, and if it has, I'll enter it in the updated sheet for select board and FinCom, but I won't be checking to see if individual members may change this. It'll just be up to all of you guys. SWAP again, we talked about, and Sue, would you be so kind, is there anything else on the agenda that we need to address today?
I'm going to share it just to cover, since I'm in the screen share.
Yeah, sure.
If that's the right one, because I have FinCom at 4.
We'll be talking annual report next. That'll begin right after the holidays. There might be a little bit of this information exchange before then. Anything select board or FinCom would like to share? Relevant, important, okay. Go to the order, I think we've probably fine there, unless we have to comment. Date of next meeting is Thursday, December 21st, 1 p.m. What we'd like to do then is wrap up SWEP and the EV charging stations. And that will finalize, and we'll have some brief discussion on the report. Okay, hopefully a very short meeting for planning purposes. I think we covered a lot of good information the other day when we had most of the membership here on the SWEP. So I think that will facilitate a quick meeting. Other than that, entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Christian, your motion.
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
Joe?
Christie.
I.
And I'm an aye. Thanks, everyone.
This is the list of the ones we have to do. Yep. I thought I was gonna.